Hi, I'm Kevin at Epigeneering, your host. Today I have a real treat for you. My good friend from New Zealand, from Auckland, New Zealand, her name is Veda Austin. And Veda is really the originator of a collection of the most amazing photographs you have ever seen. And for people that have the understanding that somehow water has memory and somehow water is central to life and somehow water has this magic that we are just now discovering, I want to introduce you to the leader of how to find things in that structure, and that is Veda Austin. Her formula is really called collective molecular photography, and she gets natural water and she effects it either through emotion or intent, and then gets a readout from that. Now, for everybody who's saying, show me the proof, show me something that tells me that this is really working, that what I can intend to do and put my feelings in and my effort and my thoughts into can really have an effect that I can see. And so without further ado, I would like to introduce you all to my dear friend, Veda Austin. Hello, Veda.
Hi, Kevin. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, it's kind of a strange thing that I always get messed up on the time because you're in New Zealand, in
Right.
Auckland, New Zealand, and I'm in Seattle. And 1 o'clock here is, of course, different times, very early in the morning where you are, but we're also on the same, we're not on the same day.
I know I'm in your future.
You're in the future. And I always wanted to go there so that I could go water skiing into the future.
What a wonderful idea. If you're going to go water skiing, into the future would be the way to go.
So today we're going to talk a little bit about some of the amazing photographs that you have and the research that you're doing. And I'm just going to let you pull a little rabbit out of your hat and tell us, how long have you been doing this, and really, how did you get started?
Sure. Well, I've been doing this research for coming up to 8 years now. And some time ago, I began this journey when I read this very obscure piece of information about a doctor called Dr. Thomas Hieronymus. I love his name. And he was in Paris, and he noticed that he was at a meat market, which is not somewhere I would go because I'm vegetarian. But anyway, he was at this meat market, and there were these freshly placed organs, and behind them was glass. And he noticed that there was frost that was crystallizing above each organ in the same shape as the organ. So there was like, say, the liver, and the frost looked like a liver, and the heart looked like a heart, and all these different organs looked like the organs, but in the frost. And I was fascinated by that concept, and I thought, well, his idea was that even though the meat such wasn't alive, it still held some kind of life force energy that was creating the crystallography. That was his idea. He was a radionic engineer. And so I thought, well, imagine if I could somehow get some water and put a living hand, not a severed hand, in the water, and see if it would influence it in any way, and whether or not a picture that looked like my hand might show up in the ice if I froze it. And so I got a petri dish, and I put some water in it, and and actually it kind of organically happened as well, because there was some fluff in the petri dish of water. So I actually physically put my hand in, and I was thinking,
Something was in the water. Fluff.
yeah, in the water. And I put my hand in, thinking, oh, I wonder if my hand will impact the water's memory. And I was thinking about Dr. Hieronymus's, observations at the time. And so I was pulling the fluff out, and I was thinking that, and I was thinking about his observations, and then I froze it, and I pulled it out much later, and I wiped the bottom, and I held my petri dish up to the light, and I used my camera on my phone to take a photo of it, because there was a hand, literally a hand, half the size of the petri dish, that looked like this in the petri dish, an image of it in the ice. So I'm going to show you. Shall I show you that image?
Well, absolutely.
I can somehow kind of like figure out how to do this. So we're going to here, This is all rather new for me, but bear with me.
Well, that's working.
Here we go. So this was the hand in the ice. So can you see that?
Yes, I can.
Yeah, so it kind of looks like an X-ray. And I was thinking, oh my God, I wonder if this was a fluke. So I ran down to the beach, because I lived right by the beach at the time. I got some seawater, and I froze a tiny little bit of seawater. And here we go. Here is the, come out of here. The next image I photographed was this little guy. So you can see the outline of a fish with his tail and his fins, perfectly round eye. And what's cool about the seawater is it's created this feathering in the ice, which I thought was super interesting. So I'll stop share. And yeah, okay.
Okay, so you're a scientist, right? You've got a PhD in molecular science, and you study these things all the time. You wear a white lab coat, and they pay you lots of money, right?
Well, I would love to wear a white lab coat, actually. I've always wanted one. But no, this is my lab right here. And I'm a mum and an artist and a water researcher, but I'm not a scientist. I am one of those people that just likes to question stuff and find stuff out for myself. And I've been crazy about water for such a long time. And I've been so interested in informed water, because I think about the body, and I think about the information that's held within this meat suit that we have, and all of the working, sophisticated working water systems inside of us, and how much information and memory is stored inside of the human body. And I was interested in looking at water that might store information, and how I can kind of connect in and find a way to see my thoughts crystallized. And that's what I started to do. I just did repeated test after repeated test, doing this work, and I kept seeing imagery after imagery after imagery. I now have over 10,000 photographs on my iPhone of ice that looks like what it was influenced by.
10,000.
Yeah, my phone is like completely overloaded. I can barely.
Well, that is certainly amazing, and I would have to put forth the statement that even though there's no PhD in front of your name, and you don't go to a university and put on a white lab coat, that indeed you are a scientist, that you are studying something that is not well known and not well accepted by the scientific community. However, your results are remarkable, unbelievable, if not for the fact that you have shown me this before. Now, for our listeners, I was working in the back of a laboratory at a university with a white coat on, and I was very, very involved in what I was doing, and the door opened, and these two ladies come in, and they said, well, can you tell us what you're doing? And one of them was this fresh face here. And so we got to know each other very well and kept talking. Over a period of time, I tried doing this myself, and it is a little strange. You start to see things that you didn't expect. And with all of the information that we're getting from like Dr. Emoto and what they call Hado and the 528 hertz frequency and the things that we're working with to try to affect water. And especially since we're working in the lab of Jerry Pollack, and that's all he studies is water. And we had all of this equipment, all of this knowledge all come together. And when we met, it like caused a spark in water that generated this interest in your work and the cross connect with intention. So maybe you could talk a little bit about how it is that you influence this water.
Sure. Well, that was what was interesting. It's almost unlimited as to how the influence of it's really up to you, the influence of your imagination. And so I've used photographs. I've taken a petri dish and put the petri dish on top of a photograph for 30 seconds only, frozen it, and had incredible results. I've had imagery that looks just like people, like I've had photos of different people, and I've had the ice imagery show their particular specific features. It's really quite incredible how it works. I could show you, I mean, I could show you one of the photographs, if you like, since I've just talked about it, so you can see what that looks like. Would you like to see that?
Absolutely.
Sure, okay. So, all right.
Do another screen share.
Another screen share. So this is great because you can actually see the photograph of my friend Wendy to the right, and you can see the ice image to the left. So you can see it really holds her features beautifully in there. And for the others, I'm putting a book out, so I don't want to do that. It's someone else's, but okay, so stop share. Yeah.
Wow, that was to say, almost revealed the whole book there. I just can't wait to see this come out because I will be one of the first people to buy a copy. And absolutely. So that's completely fascinating. What do? You gather people together and you get them all to think a certain way?
Well, I've done multiple different, I like to call them co-creations. Most people would call what I do experiments, but I always think that I'm this massive body of water by molecular count, 99% water. We have more water molecules in our body than there are stars in the Milky Way. And I hate the idea of being experimented on myself. And so what I'm seeing with these co-creations is an active participant. Really, I don't say that lightly. I have been doing this for a long time. I have this huge body of work, and I keep seeing these results. So I influence the water or co-create with the water with imagery, so photographs, pictures. I have done just by thought. I've even done verbal communication. So I thought, well, I'm right out on the edge anyway, but the photos keep presenting themselves as evidence. And so if it was just a coincidence, there's no way I would have the body of work that I do. And at the end of it all, even though they're very difficult to believe that these are real and happening, I keep photographing them. I keep getting amazed. I'm so amazed still, even now after all this time, that these images keep showing up. But one of my most amazing photographs was when I asked, and I'm gonna let you imagine this because it's going to be in my book, and I called it The Secret Intelligence of Water. But I spoke to the water. I have now done that several times, and I said, "Do you know who I am?"
That's got to raise some eyebrows on the kids.
Yeah, well, I know. The children love doing
He's talking to water again.
I know, actually, I've got them involved, so I'm not the only one in the house.
We got fire trucks going by. Oh,
okay. I can't hear the fire truck, so that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. So amazing that you can do this in you've discovered that you can, I don't want to say affect the water, but certainly that there's some connection that either the water adjusts itself or tunes itself to the resonance of what the influence is. And then as it freezes, now I've got a lot of water freezing. As you probably remember, Dr. Sapita and I were total geeks, and we were sitting there at the microscope and we're freezing water and then thawing it out again and watching what happens and trying to get an idea of how all of this crystallization works. And we saw a lot of fascinating things. I'm a total geek. I could sit there and watch it for hours.
Yeah.
But when you showed me your photographs, which is the crystalline structure follows a pattern, an imprinted pattern that is seemingly in the design of the structure. So, I mean, just amazing. Some of the complex pictures that I've seen really do have a guiding force. There's no other way to explain it. And I think you have one that I really want to see again. And if you could you show us that one?
Absolutely. I will quickly nip back to the image I saw after I spoke and asked the water if it knew who I was. It had.
Let's see that one. Yes.
It had. Sorry.
Let's see that one.
Oh, I have to find that one. But okay. But basically it had my initials VA, and it shows them linked together in exactly the same way that I actually write my initials. So I'll quickly find that one for you. But
so you asked, you talked to the water. You asked it, "Do you know who I am?" As another entity, or maybe I don't know. I watched the movie Avatar the other night, and when they all plugged into the planet, they all seemed to know, who is who. And so there's this Gaia consciousness indication there that the water is connected through a huge network on the planet, and somehow it knows who you are. And to show you something, or to have your initials in that way, it's showing you something that is really unique. How many times have you reproduced that?
The VA, I've done that now 2 times, and I've done a lot of repeat studies with music. So I've done, I've had songs where I've played it up to 6, 7 times and had a very similar image. I've done one with Stairway to Heaven, and I've had a stairway in every single photograph. It's really amazing. But you were wanting to see a photo which was very complex. And as an artist, because I worked as an artist professionally for many years, hopefully you can see this. The influence was this photograph of my daughter's French braid. And you can see the complexity in the braid of the ice picture. And to actually draw a braid, you have to get the shading right, you have to get the light right. It's really quite a complex thing to draw, let alone for it to be seen in the ice like this. I find it pretty incredible. Oh, okay, it's giving me a separate thing to do. Can you see that?
Yes, there it is.
Oh, there we go.
Wow,
okay.
That is amazing.
Yeah, it's
the one on the left is the ice.
That's the ice, and the one on the right is the photograph. So, yeah, you can see the complexity in that photo. It's really, really amazing. So that's, I keep getting...
I've never had ice do that.
That's so funny. No, well, you never know. I mean, the thing is that people don't even look in the ice. And so often, I've been observing ice for many, many, many years. And I think that is the thing that I would suggest is start like watching how ice freezes. you see the natural patterns. You see it starting to firn. You see that little like ice in the water starting to branch out. There's lots of YouTube videos you can watch of a bubble freezing. So you see a lot of the natural patterning in those videos. So what you're seeing in the ice, well, certainly what I'm seeing in these ice co-creations that I'm doing, seem to defy the normal structures of what ice would naturally do. So it absolutely blows my mind because not only is the ice creating imagery, but it appears to be having some kind of invisible interaction. It's like an invisible antenna, and it's picking up all that information, absorbing it, and then given the opportunity as it begins to freeze, it actually shares that information and imagery. And so it's remarkable because I've used different words as well. So words are one of my influences. I'll write a word down and I'll put the petri dish on top of it. I don't even think I would need it to be 30 seconds. I think I could just like pop it on for a couple of seconds and freeze it. I really think it happens so quickly.
Wow.
And the process, the actual process of the freezing is very short. It started out to be like, hours where I just let it completely freeze. And as I started to become more aware of the latest in water science and Jerry Pollack's work around fourth phase water, I was very intrigued at the idea of the creation space, the space between liquid and solid. And so I started taking petri dishes out earlier and earlier and watching at what stage they were at. And I observed that there were like two types of water. One type of water which was informed. So that was the water that actually was attracted to the bottom of the petri dish first. And then there was the uninformed water, which was liquid on top of the petri dish. And so I found this unique technique, quite different than just totally just freezing the water completely, where I would be able to use that crystalline image of the first most informed water and remove and get rid of the liquid part, and then photograph that. It was the time where the most creative kind of liquid architecture, it's like a crystalline architecture, would appear on the surface, on top of the petri dish, on the bottom of the petri dish, sorry. So I kind of kept playing with it and playing with it and playing with it until I found the exact amount of time to leave it in the freezer, the way in which to get rid of the uninformed water, and you're left with this incredible, clear, almost 3D picture. I kind of think of it like pixels, on molecules are almost like lots of little pixels creating an image, creating a snapshot of what they were last most influenced by.
And all this is going to be in the book, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I've rather than having like an almost encyclopedia of photographs, which is right, what I could do, I've picked out about 120 of the best. And so and beside each photograph is a little blurb all about the story of each photo and what the influence was and how that happened. I'm happy to share one of the stories, which is kind of a little unusual. It's an area I've just...
You have one story that's a little unusual.
Yeah, just one.
Okay, love it. You know what? I'm all ears.
Okay, well, I've often been asked by, I have like a very broad range of friends from very sciencey to really what could be termed as alternative and woo-woo, and a whole big range in the middle. And a number of people have said, can people influence the water from another country into your petri dish here in New Zealand?
That's extremely interesting, Veda, because lately I've been asked to get involved in groups that are doing things like Jerry sent out an email, that's Dr. Pollack sent out an email And he suggested that there is a group that every day at 11 o'clock in your time zone, everybody in that time zone could get together with a meditation and intent for world peace, world health, and sending or synchronizing the insides of good vibrations and good intentions with other people. And since, I'm thinking, well, it's just Crystal and I sitting in the house, or maybe I'm sitting all alone. How's that going to reach out across the yard, the street, the state, the country, or the world? How could that possibly happen?
Sure. Well, I have. So I thought, okay, well, I'll ring a friend in the States, and I'm going to ask her if she'll think of something and not tell me what it is, and just project her thought into the petri dish of water here in my kitchen. And so she was all yep, sure, no problem. And then she'd recently got married. I hadn't met her husband yet. I really didn't know him particularly well at all. I just heard a little bit about him. And so he kind of came and he kind of waved at me, and I'm like, oh, let's do it, even make it even more random. I said, can you ask your husband if he'll
Skeptic. Yeah.
Yeah. And he was such a good sport. He was like, oh, I'm sure he thought I was like nuts, but he did it anyway. And and so he thought of something, and he said, okay, done. And then he went off to do his own thing. So I froze the sample, and I rang her back. I took it out, and I'm like, I can definitely see something in the ice here, but can you please show him first? So she went and she showed him, and she told me, she said, oh my God, he thinks you're like doing some voodoo on water or something now. And I'm like, why? And he said, because he's a hunter. So I'm a vegetarian, and this is not something I would ever think in 1,000 years. And it's a very specific thought he had. So my point of telling you that is that it was not influenced by me. Because a lot of people think that I have this magic thing with water and that only I can recreate them. But I know that that's not true, because both my children have done these, and various other people have managed to get images in ice. So he said that he had been thinking about going and hunting and catching a pheasant, a specific bird, and that was his thought, because he wanted her to cook him pheasant for dinner. And so the image, which I will go into share with you, is of a hand holding a pheasant. So desktop, okay, and here we go. Can you see that?
Oh my goodness, look at that.
And here is the bird's head and the pheasant's kind of plumage and his body, like tail coming down.
Yeah. I mean, the texture is just kind of right.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so interesting.
Okay, and so now you have to come clean and tell us that you're the daughter of shamans over thousands of years that have passed this on to their progeny through other types of existential crystals all that stuff. I mean, I'm not very well versed in the real fringe stuff here, but it seems to me that
the daughter of mermaids, definitely.
Yeah, okay, daughter of mermaids. Yeah. Okay, stick a foot up there. Make sure you got 2 of them.
But the main thing, actually, my dad is a famous Maori fisherman here. His name's Bill Hohepa. So watery things, I guess, in the blood. But I have just an inquiring mind, and I think that that's one of the most important things, is that we actually find stuff out for ourselves, and in the process of doing that, you can discover things that nobody else has ever discovered, and it's just so exciting.
I have a feeling that all of the great discoveries made by people that society at large says, well, they were a great scientist. Well, the truth is that one was an artist and one was a painter. And the guy that figured out long-range telegraph was maybe good at math, but he was a telegraph operator,
Yeah.
you know? And so there are all these discoveries that came out that really changed the world. Tesla graduated from electrical engineering when electrical engineering was in its infancy. So everything that he learned in school got him out of school, but then his imagination created this whole new realm that then a bunch of scientists had to go in and figure out what was going on. Now, did Tesla figure it out? Well, maybe inside of his head, but he didn't like create the words and the math and all of that stuff. He was just simply feeling it, understanding it, and then building things that used it. A lot of people are like that. And those are, you know, maybe 200 years from now, it'll be scientist, PhD, Veda Austin, was able to start this, you know, this movement here through her research over decades that convinced so many people that there is something going on and we don't understand it. And when you talk about, you know, shamans and people in the past who carried us through these thousands of years of evolution to get to where we are today, you have to take into account that some of the things that they did actually worked and that they were onto something, even though they could not describe it. They didn't have the math. They didn't have the words. They felt it and it worked. So for that, I think that you will get, one day, you will get the recognition that you deserve. So.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
I think the future is ancient. I agree with everything you said, because I think that ancient wisdom has a real place in the world today, and that if we actually listened to what was discovered so long ago in the natural world from the natural people that were living in the natural world, I think that their observations are so valid and so relevant right now, and the indigenous wisdom and ancient wisdom is really important to be looked at and listened to. I have a great affinity for that, and you know, I think that all I'm doing is observing and creating an opportunity for water to have a voice. And I think that nature needs to have and feel that it has a voice to be able to communicate. Just like we feel most important when we feel heard and seen, I think it's the same for the natural world that we are part of. If we start really taking that into consideration for animals and plants and trees and this entire planet as a living being as a whole.